This week, Russel T Davies got told what he deserved.
Sack Russel T Davies and I'll come back.
The guy who resurrected Doctor Who and then came back to make sure it was dead. At this point, I'm just getting vibes of no one can kill Doctor Who but me.
Just don't like being associated with those people. The first series was a mess and it wasn't to do with me.
This is the guy who went from, I don't want children walking to school thinking, oh my god, I'm going to die, to now saying, you've got to talk about it, you've got to tell them they're going to flood, they're going to burn, or you'll let them all down. In 18 years, Russel T Davies went from, I want to make entertaining shows for kids, to you're all going to die, and you should be petrified every moment of your waking life, including when you're walking to school, which at least if you live in a major city is probably a legitimate concern at this point. But Russel T Davies, he's got a theory. We channel all of our fear and paranoia and dread about what's to come into our fantasy dramas, and Russell sees Doctor Who as fantasy nowadays rather than sci-fi. So I guess when the show says this,
you have a kid, and then she grows up into this extraordinary, beautiful thing, and you think, where the hell did she come from?
It's actually just part of Russell's fear, paranoia, and dread about what's to come. Which, to be fair, is perfectly possible. Remember, he thinks all disabled people are evil.
And a lot of us on the production team had the problems with that, of associating disability with evil.
I've got a problem with just assuming they're all evil, I don't know why. But the weather isn't the only issue Doctor Who will address. It's one of a long list, and boy, do we know that now. Because Gatwa only auditioned once for Doctor Who. Like, hey, we've got one, folks. We've found the perfect candidate. We don't need to look at anyone else. The moment he walked through the door, I knew he was perfect. He also, in a quite staggering moment of self-awareness, said, I live in a very leftist liberal bubble. Could have just said you worked at the BBC, mate.
You stupid woman with your weird child.
Because it's not surprising that the BBC thinks that they should be doing stuff like teaching kids about the weather, because the people at the BBC specialise in sticking themselves where they don't belong. But Mr. Gatwa over here apparently explained that it was Jodie Whittaker who he felt a particular affinity to, as they both had backlash over being cast. Which is really weird he would say that, because I remember him saying this. I was braced for impact and pleasantly surprised because it was the antithesis of what I was expecting. Oh my gosh, I'm so loved. Well, if you're so loved and everyone responded so great to you being cast, how on earth did you have a shared struggle because of the naysayers?
Make it make sense.
But it was really interesting because of the bubble he works in at the BBC, and says there's a really great episode coming up next year where we lean into that. Mate, if you only think you're leaning into this in one episode, what were the last three? Because if you want the perfect explanation of why Eccleston was right.
Sack Russel T Davies, sack Jane Tranter, sack Phil Collinson, sack Julie Gardner.
You only have to look at the last three episodes. In the first one, we had some of the most bizarre moments of the series.
And now I've got a nice life, with a nice fella and a nice house, the most beautiful daughter in the world.
I mean, look, in sci-fi, there's always an element of suspending your disbelief around reality. There are limits, though. At this point, I was having an aneurysm when I watched it. Sonic waves making force fields is the most stupid thing I've seen. And then we had the alien.
What the hell?
Maybe we shouldn't introduce ourselves to an alien species by poking it in the eye. A guy who is supposed to be the villain, and yet the supposed heroes of the episode offered to sell him for medical experimentation.
We could sell Mad Paddington for £1 million.
Oh, no.
All because she wanted avocados on toast.
You fill the fridge.
Then we hit episode 2, and spoilers, where aliens are learning how to imitate people, and the faster you think, the faster they can mimic you. This is combated by making a machine move really slowly for absolutely no reason whatsoever, because the episode specifically says they can't read the minds of a machine because a machine doesn't have a mind. So while she would have to think slowly about what she was doing, the machine could move at normal speed and no one would care and it wouldn't change anything.
It seems your stupidity is second only to your inability to control your temper.
And that was just episode 2, because we carry on the same floor into episode 3, where for some reason we steal our own storylines.
Not like the old Archangel network. There's nothing hiding in that signal.
You do realise just because you point out it's a reference doesn't make it any better in the script.
I am anti-Z-Dex.
But then we do something really stupid.
Could you pull?
Yeah, I didn't actually mean that, but that one works as well.
You get a prize, honey. Ta-da! I am so sorry.
I have a feeling that's what Russel T Davies meant by upsetting die-hard fans. And by die-hard fans, he just means anybody that watches the show. If you know anything about Doctor Who, you'll think that's bullshit. We're taking a sly step towards fantasy. I wouldn't mind if you at least had an IQ above 30. In this episode, the villain makes the Doctors split in two. He wants to breed as many Doctors as possible so he can play with them all at the same time. It's like if the BBC set up a kindergarten. The story has the villain specifically decide to do that to the Doctor, and yet after we've already defeated the villain and he's gone off to a different dimension, we just randomly go, well, we're in his domain. No, you're not, mate, you're on Earth. I know you've only been the Doctor for about 3 seconds, but you can at least catch up. You're the Doctor now, he can be smarter than you are.
Human scum!
So because we've now retconned the story from seconds ago, now we're in his domain and we could just multiply anything?
You get a prize, honey.
The Doctor isn't doing anything in this scene. He's literally just hitting it with a hammer and the momentum duplicates it for no reason whatsoever. This means everybody in the street, if anybody walked into anything, banged their toe, everything would multiply, and it gets worse. His domain isn't just limited to the area around the tower. People weren't just multiplying all over Earth. On the BBC iPlayer in-vision commentary, Russel T Davies himself reveals that the bi-generation is bigger than we thought. Was anything else bigger than you thought? I need to know. When they split, a whole timeline bi-generated. This means that every previous regeneration has been impacted too, so every old Doctor is now alive in a splintered timeline. I think all of the Doctors came back to life with their individual TARDISes, the gift of the Toymaker. It wasn't a gift, he was trying to farm you all. The aim was an infinite amount of Doctors because he was essentially the only person who could actually make entertaining games for him. Never mind. They're all out there travelling around in what I'm calling the Doctorverse. I don't know what you've been doing for the last 18 years, but we have significantly less grey matter now, don't we? Too many parties? I don't know. But yes, just every Doctor came back to life in that instant. And it gets worse, because the Toymaker didn't specifically choose the Doctors, as the show said he did, because as Gatwa said, we're now in his domain. It's affecting everything. That's why they could double the TARDIS. That means everything, at every point in time, throughout the entire timeline, present and future, is in the Toymaker's domain, and so if anybody knocks into anything or crashes at any point, they will just multiply themselves throughout all of history and all of the future.
Leanne, Tony, check your 2 balls very carefully.
If you thought the Marvel snap coming back and wondering what would happen if half the universe came back instantaneously, that'd probably cause a lot of problems. Imagine every stop of momentum doubling whatever it was at every point in history forever. You gonna sort that one out? I would love to know. Like bi-generation, that's extremely exciting on the face of it. Yes, if we just look at it skin deep and don't think about it at all, then maybe it might make sense. If we could just turn our brain off long enough to actually not think about something, maybe I could enjoy it.
I love that you never make any effort at all.
If only I worked for the BBC and had mastered having an internal monologue like the Sahara Desert, I too could fit in with the creative team of Doctor Who. This is amazing. It's just like sand dunes all the way. David Tennant's return might be just the beginning of more nostalgic comebacks. Can we get Christopher Eccleston back?
Sack Russel T Davies and I'll come back. I love being associated with the character. Just don't like being associated with those people.
I think he might be able to fix it. Although at this point, I doubt that's enough. I'm not even sure I could trust the dinner lady. She's spoken to Russel T Davies. We can't trust her. The risk is too high. We can't keep burning money. But if you want some good news, have I got it for you. David Tennant will never be coming back. 4 weeks ago, I wouldn't have said that was a good thing, but now it's cause for celebration. Although the comments, this is the age of... I still don't know how to pronounce his name. Cutie now. Calling your child cutie seems a bit egotistical, doesn't it? What should we call him? Oh, isn't he a cutie? Okay, I've written... No, that wasn't his name. I was just commenting. But Gatwa was told that he should not swear in costume. He was called into Davies' office. Do whatever you want out of costume, but when you're in costume, do not let us catch you swearing. That's right, if you want moral messaging for your kids, everybody looks up to Doctor Who.
I promise I can help him get home and then you'll never see me again.
You're assuming he as a pronoun.
Of course he is, love. Have you seen the thing? It's a furry creature with no clothes on. The Doctor can see him swinging in the breeze. Look, we're not going to have kids being told about vibrations through the air. But you know what is great? If they want to cut off their dick. But Gatwa, he's going to be an incredible Doctor. I have absolutely no doubt. Look, if you get to be Doctor Who just off one audition, when there's normally like 27 auditions, that's got to be incredible talent. Russel T Davies knew what he wanted, and that was it. He just knew by sight from the first time he saw him that you're exactly what I want. And I don't know what that is.
Dad issues.
But he does think that the Doctor has always walked into unknown situations, and historically, there's only really one demographic of people that are able to do that. Yes, the British. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's a British show, so British actors should play the roles of British people. But he's a Time Lord, he's not British. The moment somebody says that, you know you can disregard their opinion as a massive... Given that it's a British institution going back decades, it's important that British people play it. And thank God, things are changing, that's right. Gatwa is obsessed with how he looks. By God, could we get through an interview without somebody saying, "Nobody's ever seen anyone that looks like me"? Can't imagine why Russel T Davies knew on sight that you were the perfect hire for the job. Also, what's going on with those shoulder pads, mate? They're like 3 times your body width. I think your shoulders end there. Going into initial production, I was keen to keep up the traditionalism of the show. Thank God, things are changing. That means my bank balance can be increased. But it's a process of the show encouraging me to embrace myself. Because don't you realise this is all about me? This isn't about a decades-long institution, which is really important to the British people that I should respect. No, this is about me. Thank God, things are changing. Keen to keep up the traditionalism of the show. Is that why your sonic screwdriver has this on it?
Gallifreyan symbols, and it is a Rwandan proverb.
Please tell me, what does that have to do with being a Time Lord or being British? Why are we employing non-British actors to play British roles?
It's the principle of the thing.
Could it be that you're all in a massive BBC bubble and as such are massive? I'd love to know. For the past 4 years, I've been co-leading an X-rated show, and now I'm going to lead a family show as a PG role model. I have absolutely no idea what Russel T Davies saw in you, or how he got the job after just one interview. I mean, he just immediately knew you were the right person to lead a PG family show. He just took one look at your CV and thought, that's the role model I need to show British children. I'd expect nothing less of the BBC.
This is bad. This is really bad.
But as is always the case in these kind of situations, it's very easy to virtue too close to the sun. You're literally pandering to a bunch of evil lunatics that just want to eat your own face. And so, as always, for the permanently offended, which is weird considering the only thing they don't get offended by is themselves, we find out from Vox that Doctor Who has to learn to let go of David Tennant. And at this point, after those 3 specials, I agree. Kick him out into space. It'll be a laugh. How long can a Time Lord survive a vacuum? Let's find out. But the problem is that we get really offended by the way that Mr. Gatwa over there was introduced. Even when the plot was leaked as spoilers, people already weren't happy about it. There was well-earned criticism from fans who have pointed out that if you have 2 doctors, that will automatically make the new, unfamiliar incarnation feel like a cheap imitation. I can't imagine why. I mean, that is the personification of an eccentric English gentleman, completely at home, having high tea with the Queen. I mean, of the royal family, obviously, not of the BBC. The British Broadcasting Corporation.
There's a theme here, by the way. A little bit.
Russel T Davies, the Welsh screenwriter and television producer, 60. But this isn't looking great for the first mainline Black Doctor, one played by an alphabet actor at that. We definitely virtued too close to the sun because we forgot that if at any point you are of category, nothing can happen to your character at all. You have to be the most important, you have to be perfect, you can never make any mistakes because that is like real life. We get down to the morality of it all again. The difference between heroes are good because of what they do, or category is good because of what they are. Do you value morality or identity? The BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, is firmly in the latter category, along with seemingly The Independent, who thought this criticism was well earned. And they weren't the only ones. The Verge got in on it. The new Doctor feels like a timey-wimey slap to the face, marked by a number of questionable decisions, at least we can agree on something, and racist tropes. What tropes?
We bought the house, now we can't afford to run it. What do I care? Got the best 2 girls in the world, mate.
Hitting a phone box with a hammer?
You get a prize, honey.
What kind of stereotypes do you have? If you want to look at stereotypes and tropes, you want to pull up the history of Isaac Newton, mate. Look, I know jealousy is a strong emotion, but I mean, come on. We put this guy in the series for absolutely no reason whatsoever. He didn't even impact the story. We just went there, saw him, and pissed off. If anything, that actor should be offended. What, you put me in this role just so I could appear for 5 seconds and then not do anything? What did you want to do? Just hit him in the face with an apple? Was it something you wanted to do your entire life and were just desperately looking for an excuse? People at the BBC always desperately looking for a chance to abuse somebody. Do we have to make it fall by gravity, or can I just throw it at his head? No wonder he looks shocked. The cameraman had just nailed him in the face. It's sad that we're in a time where people villainize minorities. What? Mr. Casting Director for Doctor Who? That's what you're doing. The creator of the Doctor Who admitted that himself and, presumably you, all think they're evil.
And a lot of us on the production team had the problems with that of associating disability with evil.
One doth think thou projects too much, mate.
There's a very long tradition of this.
No signs of life?
Well, not intelligent life, mate, anyway. But don't you understand, the BBC, in an attempt to make bi-generation a word, they have stolen Gatwa's thunder. We were going to virtue signal over this thing for months, but now we'd just be like, well, you know, Tennant still exists, the primary Doctor, you're just the backup. No matter how Doctor Who fans might want to deny it, the Doctor, until 2017, was small-minded, racist, sexist, in equal measure, otherwise known as British. There's just so many British people in Britain, it's really confusing.
That's gaslighting. That's what it is.
The Verge, I'm assuming you're an American website. Now I know this is going to challenge your tiny little minds, but around the world, nations tend to have a lot of native people in them. The clue is in the name. By Charles Pulliam Moore. Oh, we've got a double-barreled surname. Over here, that's generally a signal that you're incredibly posh. But for you, I'm just assuming it's a grift like everything else. But Whittaker demonstrated that Doctor Who could better reflect the real world differences of the fandom. But why would it? It's a British show. It's exported to the world. The world watches it because it's a British show. Coupling is my favourite comedy. The Americans made a version of Coupling. It doesn't work because it's a British comedy, not an American one. And so when you take American actors and American culture and cram that into a British property, you don't get the original property. You get this entirely new American thing. But the problem was, Coupling was good because of the British elements in it. You've removed its soul. You've removed why people liked it in the first place. If you take Doctor Who, a British show, and then take the rest of the world and cram it into Doctor Who, it's no longer a British show, and therefore you will remove what the rest of the world liked about it in the first place. But hey, what do I know? I'm not making terrible shows that nobody wants to see. That's your specialty, BBC.
As they decide whether to share or to shaft.
But when he regenerates, he's left there standing in his underwear. Something which Gatwa actually blamed Tennant for? That David started filming the first scene, and so he got to choose what pieces of clothing he was left with. And it's like, that doesn't really make any sense. You're literally duplicating. We saw the TARDIS copy itself into an identical TARDIS. Not an identical TARDIS with half of its paint. You both could have been wearing clothes. Can't imagine why you weren't. The British Broadcasting Corporation. But no, this excuse that literally comes from Gatwa's own mouth, that's not enough for The Verge. Land of milk and honey and the permanently bigoted. This just makes it seem like Davies is trying to placate the fans. They won't accept a strange actor playing Doctor Who. That seems incredibly offensive. By keeping Tennant in the mix. Fans vocalised their displeasure at him being cast, which, as I showed you earlier in the video, Gatwa himself said, I was surprised that didn't happen. Everybody loved him. The same way they gripe about other people being replaced by impossibilities. James Bond is a person. It'd be weird one day if he was like, wow, this tan's a bit strong. I fell asleep under a sunbed, but I never expected this. It would be exactly the same if I walked in one day and was like, I don't know what's happened, folks, and I just woke up like this. Look, I fell asleep watching Tropic Thunder, and I don't know what happened. They're also the people who love Mace Windu. Are you sure you want to include that in your article? Because you've kind of just torpedoed your entire argument. But hated it when Flynn picked up a lightsaber. Firstly, I'm not sure that happened. Secondly, it's almost as if one's a good character and one's ass. The point is, these fans are an unfortunate fixture in many genres fandoms, yes. Or as other people like to call them, people with taste. I'm sorry, The Verge, that I must apologise for having standards. It was taught to me as a child, what can I say? You can tell Davies means for it to be poignant and touching, but all of this is squandered when you have one character asking if the Doctor comes in a variety of colours. I agree, that's stupid. Doesn't she have eyes? Seriously, which one comes next? I'd love to know. Maybe we could get a blue one. Oh, I've regenerated into a Smurf. Maybe we could employ one of the characters from Farscape to come in. What happens if the Doctor regenerates into a chair, like an inanimate object? The trappings and optics of the giggle also add an unfortunate kind of magical quality. I can't even read that. Look, it's a movie. It's not my fault. But the episode's real emotional climax, British Broadcasting Corporation, comes from the emotional healing. But really, if you look at The Doctor and what was coming next, you have two distinct groups. You have the people like The Verge, who don't care about Doctor Who in the least. For them, this was just another opportunity to virtue signal. And we're like, I can't believe that my opportunity to virtue signal has been undermined by the guy that put it in. That's what they're annoyed at. That's why he virtued too close to the sun and is getting burnt by the people who are like, no, but I wanted this to be a great moment, and now look what you've done. Because it will never be enough for them. That's the point. It's not a bug. It's a feature. And then you have the other people who didn't care. The long string of Doctor Who series that were awful, followed by Jodie Whittaker as just hammering nails into its corpse. Loads of people already didn't care about Tennant's return, but it was Tennant. It at least got some people back to the series, and then they watched the first episode like, oh no. And the reason why nobody really cared about Gatwa is because it's already gone. They'd already given up with previous Doctors. You'd already destroyed the franchise. I can't believe that all these people aren't angry at it. You have to go looking for a couple of tweets that you can desperately find with one like on them. Or if you're The Verge, you don't even bother to do that. You just say there was uproar. Because while people may care about a British institution being destroyed by hiring non-British people, none of those people are around to care anymore. You already took away its soul by trying to cram other cultures into it. It's no longer a British institution. You took away the thing that the world liked about it. And so when you're like, no, but we're just going to keep taking it away, everyone's like, no, I don't care. It means nothing anymore. It became a platform to you to preach to your audience and then realized, oh, the audience has left. So all of the British Broadcasting Corporation's great ideas about how actually we're going to use this as a way to preach to kids about what they should believe, that we are literally going to tell them that they should be petrified for the rest of their life. It's too late. You've got nothing left because you've already killed it. Now, I was very surprised that they couldn't even keep it in their trousers for 3 episodes to try and win people back so they would actually watch Gatwa's run. But the problem is the same as always. When you live in the BBC's bubble, every single person has exactly the same opinion. That leads to everyone else egging everyone else, always complimenting them. Nobody stands in line, and you end up a deranged lunatic. You don't know what normal people think. And the problem is, normal people are your audience. Now, the BBC may not care about that because they get the license fee that people are cancelling at massive rates. And now they've got that Disney money. But I do question just how much Disney will care or how much money they will continue to give you when they realise that you've killed your show. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe for more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.